13 people have been arrested for flouting COVID-19 guidelines at a protest in front of the Indian High Commission in London. At least 4,000 people gathered. Many of them were seen carrying Khalistani flags. Under the COVID-19 pandemic guidelines, an assembly of only 30 protesters has been permitted. Around 700 vehicles participated in a rally, even though permission was sought for only 40. People had reportedly sought permission from authorities to protest against new farm laws in India. However, people carrying Khalistani flags to the protest has raised fear of anti-India motive behind these protests. Political Press and Information Minister at the Indian High Commission in London, Mr. Vishwesh Negi, spoke to WION's principal diplomatic correspondent about the situation. He said, and I quote, "As expected, it soon became clear that the gathering was led by anti-India separatists who had taken the opportunity of the farm protests in India to pursue their own anti-India agenda. Protest against farm bills in India is part of a democratic process. Needless to say, it is an internal issue of India." While this is a first such demonstration this year, two major protests were held in the aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370. Most of the protesters were from Pakistani diaspora, many of whom vandalized the infrastructure of the Indian mission back then. Joining us on this broadcast is Ruchi Ghanshyam, former Indian High Commissioner to the UK. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. Now, you were the Indian High Commissioner to the UK when anti-India elements staged a protest outside the Indian consulate and even indulged in violence after the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir. Now, in the past, we have seen certain Khalistani secessionist elements stage demonstrations in the UK, and once again we are seeing the same today. Has the United Kingdom allowed itself to become the breeding ground of such extremist groups? Should the UK use greater authority in dealing with such elements who stand banned by partner nations such as India?
There is no doubt that there are a large number of elements that are anti-Indian who are based in the UK, and they are based there not from today but for a long time. And they continue to pursue these activities. We have on our side tried to convey to the government of UK our concerns, and I think there is increasingly greater understanding and awareness about the nefarious activities that are going on in the name of these groups. Yes, I think there should be greater action. And I have no doubt that we will continue to make the efforts to convince the authorities in UK of the need for greater action against elements of this kind in UK.
Now, certain UK MPs have written to the Foreign Secretary seeking an intervention on behalf of the farmers. Do you expect the UK government to intervene? Does the United Kingdom have any locus standi to even comment on an issue that is strictly India's internal matter?
Well, absolutely. This is an internal matter of India, and this is a matter between the people of India and the government of India. There are civil society, the media, lot of people, authorities, institutions that are engaged in this, process in the dialogue. So really, there is no locus standi for any third party, for any third government outside, or even people living outside who are not even citizens of India, to be making, any kind of demands for laws in India. That's a prerogative of the government of India, the Parliament of India, the people of India. Foreigners do not have a say in that matter at all. As for the 36 members of Parliament who are supposed to have sent a letter, now, I was somewhat surprised to see that some of them, not a lot of them, but there are some Pakistani origin members of parliament included in that group. Now, how does any member of parliament who originates in Pakistan, who has no link with India, how is he concerned or she concerned about things that are happening, in India between the farmers and between the authorities or the government? Also, I'm not very sure if everybody's consent had been taken beforehand, whether, all of them figure there. I mean, I'm not aware of those details. I also noticed that a number of Indian origin MPs are not even there in that list. So I think people, sometimes members of parliament in UK, they write these letters, take up these issues, which some may or may not be a motivated attempt, but they do take up in the past. They write to the Foreign Secretary. Even the High Commissioner will sometimes receive letters from individual MPs, because this is often it is in response to requests or letters that they may receive from their constituents. In this case, I am a little bit skeptical because of the nature of the group of people who have signed, because there are not all Indian origin MPs. There are also Pakistani origin MPs included in that. So I would take it in that, it's the same way you would see that in the protest, it was the radical elements, the Khalistanis, who tried to take over and the hijack actually the entire show and make it an instrument for pursuing their own agenda.
You seem to have answered my next question. I wanted to ask you whether you believe there is a foreign hand or a Pakistani hand behind these protests. And you mentioned certain Pakistani origin MPs who have written this letter. The list also includes Labour MP Debbie Abraham. She was part of the UK parliamentary group that was paid rupees 30 lakh by Pakistan to visit POK and raise the Kashmir issue. So I think you've answered that question. So let's just focus on these anti-India elements who seem to have hijacked the protest, like you mentioned. People have a right to stage peaceful protests, but do you believe the farmer agenda has now been completely and deliberately hijacked by anti-India secessionist elements in the UK? By the so-called Khalistani elements, using the farmer protest to fuel their own agenda?
I absolutely agree with you, because in India we can see that there are talks going on between the farmers and the government, and people coming to the High Commission, and especially during COVID times, when the whole world, not just UK, but the whole world is trying to deal with this pandemic. They sought permission. I'm told, I think it was a report that in the media, that there was permission for a very small number, 30 people or 40 cars or some such thing, and there was a huge crowd, no social distancing being followed. And some of the people who were there were arrested as well by the police. So it is clearly it's about the agenda that they are trying to pursue. Certain elements, negative elements, are trying to pursue. It's not about goodwill for anybody in India.
Ruchi Ghanshyam, former Indian High Commissioner to the UK, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insight on these protests that we are seeing outside the Indian High Commission in the UK.